Very few games are doomed from the start, but Reign of Kings is one of those exceptions. Now, calling Reign of Kings bad isn't really correct. It took a pretty common survival game genre and put a medieval twist on it, and I played it at launch and I will admit I loved it. I had some truly memorable experiences in this game that I'll get into later, but for now let's talk about the game dev's previous games. To look into this failure, you gotta look into the past. Codehatch, the developers of Reign of Kings, made a game called Starforge, a co-op open-world survival game. If you can piece together some things on your own, you can see where this is going. Unlike Reign of Kings though, Starforge was at no point a playable game, and there are plenty of in-depth reviews on Starforge, and I'm not really gonna put money into that game. With a broken game, mostly funded through Kickstarter, what would they do now? Maybe fix as much as they can before leaving the title and moving on to make a new game? Well, this is where Reign of King kicks in. The biggest question for me is, how did a lot of us not see this coming? I knew of Starforge. I had seen the terrible videos and the terrible quality that Starforge was given. So why did I purchase Reign of Kings? For some odd reason, I had no idea that these were made by the same people. And going back and watching the videos I watched back in the day, I think it was kind of on purpose. A lot of these videos were sponsored, and a lot of them never mentioned the game dev's previous attempt in a video game. Which just sparks another question. Why wouldn't the company just change their name and go on as a different handle from here on out? To sort of forget that Starforge ever happened. If more people would have known that Starforge was this developer's previous work, and more people made it obvious and clear that it was made by the same company as Starforge, I don't think this game would have gotten as much attention as it did on launch. So that brings me to the next segment, the gameplay. If you have played Rust, then you have a pretty good understanding of the basic of Reign of Kings. It's an open world survival game where anyone could be a friend or enemy, but where in my eyes Rust fails, Reign of Kings excelled. And that topic is the OP items. Now, I'm not saying in Rust that the C4 or anything like that are easy to obtain, but once you get them, you are pretty OP. Just set it up like this. How many times have you jumped onto a Rust server, built a small house, got some materials, and made a bow, then some random guy with full black armor and C4 blows your shack to pieces? You'd only been playing on that server for maybe 30 to 45 minutes, but you already have to start all over from the beginning. I know other people have differing success, but no matter how hard I try and how many friends I try to get on, this seems to be a reoccurring theme for me in Rust. In Reign of Kings, the only time I was raided was about 4 days after I'd owned a base for a long while. And at this point, I had already done so much that I was ready to start from scratch. I wanted to go attack some buildings, attack some guys, get some loot, and just start all over. Instead of getting mowed down by some guy with an LMG, you'd get into hand-to-hand combat with swords, axes, and bows. There was this one person who would be selected as king, and he would collect taxes on stuff like if you were chopping down a tree, he would get a certain percentage of that, and he'd get his own royal guard in this little fortress. Basically, the king would make rules and taxes and whatnot, and the whole general public would rebel if they were too fed up with his high taxes or other crazy rules. It was really cool being a part of a ragtag large group of militia fighting against a slightly smaller but very much more well-armed royal guard. To give an example about how unique this game was, the first time I played it, I was captured by a small clan and put in prison. They would go about their daily lives while I would crack jokes with them from my small little cage. I finally got the approval of the leader, to which he invited me into his clan, gave me a tour of their little base, armed me with weapons and armor, and in that moment I saw something. I saw an opportunity to make some friends, be loyal to a group of people, and watch as our clan grew to become big enough to where one day I could become king. Instead, I murdered him, stole his food, yelled some bad words at him, and ran off. And to this day, I've never had an experience like that in any other game. This game had so much potential, and I was really enjoying it at first. So, what happened? So with all this hype and enjoyment riding on this game, how could it possibly fail? Firstly, the updates started slowly coming out, and when you have an open world survival game, you need to add new stuff here and there to keep the game interesting. On top of updates slowly coming out and not adding too much, the devs were pretty bad at keeping up with the constant hacking that was going on. Whether it was a poor anti-cheat program or whatever was going on, it seemed like the hackers were always one step ahead of these devs. And after all this, the game started to go south, and quick. What started as dwindling in player count and then not a lot of new features being added to enhance the game, it was looking like this game was coming to an end. With the last update being in December 2017, the game is pretty much dead. So how should we have known it was doomed from the start? Well, there are three key indications. The first one was their past failures. Now, if their last game was a different genre, like an FPS, and they kind of ported some features over, it would have been fine. But since their first game was an open world survival game, so much like Reign of Kings, it should have been a pretty big red flag from the start. The second indication was a lack of communication between the community and the devs, and even the community and the community. It never felt like a lot of discussion was going on between the community of what they were expecting to come from this game. And the last key feature is the oversaturated market that it jumped itself into. It definitely isn't the first, and it won't be the last survival game we've ever seen, and it didn't quite do enough to make itself stand out between games like Rust and Ark Survival Evolved. That did kind of help at the same time though, because it was coming out at a time where survival game hype was at an all-time high, so almost any new game that was a survival game, a bunch of people would jump on to. In conclusion, this game was fun for players like myself that played it at a peak player count. The community seemed alive and thriving, but we all should have seen what was coming in the near future. If you jump on today, you're not going to find much. A few servers with 4 to 5 people and really nothing much to do. But it's always fun to go back and think, what could have been if all these steps had been avoided and this game actually kicked off? Well, it's only speculation at this point. With the new passing trend being of battle royales, I don't expect to ever see a Reign of Kings but actually good game come out anytime soon, so I think it's safe to say that this whole game, this whole idea is pretty much put to rest. But either way, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know if you guys actually played this game when it had peak player count and it felt like everything was going good, or if you kind of found this game later on and thought of it as a cool idea but were never able to really play it and enjoy it to its maximum potential. Either way guys, thank you guys for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you next time.